Welcome to Unlock Your English. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that is arguably the most critical, yet often underestimated, aspect of language acquisition: listening comprehension. For many English learners, especially those targeting the B1 level, listening can feel like a formidable wall. You might understand individual words, grasp grammar rules, and even construct sentences. But when a native speaker talks at a natural pace, the words can blur into an incomprehensible stream. This frustration is universal, but it doesn't have to define your learning journey. Listening is the primary gateway to fluency. Before you can speak confidently, read extensively, or write effectively, you must first be able to comprehend what you hear. Think of a child learning their first language. They spend years immersed in listening before they utter a single coherent sentence. Listening feeds your vocabulary, internalizes grammatical structures, attunes you to natural pronunciation, and ultimately shapes your ability to communicate effectively. For B1 learners, the challenges are particularly acute. You've moved beyond basic survival English, but often struggle with the speed, accents, idiomatic expressions, and connected speech of real-world conversations. This article isn't just about offering listening exercises. It's about dissecting the common pitfalls that hinder your progress and equipping you with actionable strategies to overcome them. We will analyze the intricate process of listening, trace its importance through linguistic history, examine its current state in language pedagogy, and provide concrete, in-depth examples relevant to your B1 journey. By the end of this comprehensive guide, you'll not only understand why listening is so crucial, but also how to approach it strategically, transforming your passive struggles into active, confident comprehension. Get ready to unlock the power of your ears and accelerate your path to true English fluency.
Historical development and evolution. From ancient origin to modern digital immersion. The emphasis on listening and language learning is not a new phenomenon, but its pedagogical approaches and available resources have undergone a radical transformation throughout history. Understanding this evolution helps us appreciate the current best practices and the cognitive science underpinning effective listening instruction. In ancient societies, before widespread literacy, language transmission was almost exclusively oral. Children learned by listening to their elders, mimicking sounds, and gradually understanding meaning through context and repetition. There were no textbooks, no grammar rules explicitly taught. Language was absorbed through direct immersion. This natural, listening-first approach highlights a fundamental truth. The human brain is wired to acquire language, primarily through auditory input. Learning a second language in this era would have similarly relied heavily on immersion in the target language community, where listening was a survival skill. The silent period observed in early language acquisition, where learners listen extensively before speaking, mirrors this historical reality. The rise of formal education and the study of classical languages, Latin and Greek, led to the dominance of the grammar translation method from the 18th to the early 20th centuries. This method prioritized reading and writing, with a heavy emphasis on grammatical rules and direct translation. Listening and speaking were largely neglected. The belief was that if you understood the grammar and vocabulary on paper, you could automatically comprehend spoken language. This proved to be a significant pitfall for learners, as it fundamentally misunderstood the distinct skills involved in auditory processing compared to reading. Students could translate complex texts, but often struggled to understand a simple spoken sentence. This period represents a historical low point for listening. In formal language pedagogy, post-World War II, the urgent need for oral communication skills, particularly for military personnel, spurred the development of the audiolingual method in the mid-20th century. Influenced by behaviorism, this method emphasized habit formation through extensive repetition, drills, and memorization of dialogues. Listening was central, but primarily as a means to imitate and reproduce sounds. Learners would listen to patterns and then repeat them, aiming for perfect pronunciation and automaticity. While this method brought listening back into the classroom, its rigid focus on rote, memorization, and lack of meaningful context often led to superficial comprehension and an inability to adapt to real-world, unpredictable speech. It treated listening as a decoding exercise rather than a meaning-making one. From the 1970s onwards, the communicative language teaching CL1 approach revolutionized language education. CLT shifted the focus from grammatical accuracy to communicative competence, emphasizing that the goal of language learning is to use language effectively for meaningful interaction. Listening in this paradigm moved beyond mere decoding or repetition. It became recognized as an active, interpretative process of constructing meaning from spoken input. Learners were encouraged to listen for the gist, to infer meaning, and to engage in authentic communicative tasks. This era saw the introduction of more varied listening materials, including authentic dialogues, news broadcasts, and interviews, moving away from artificially constructed classroom-only content. The emphasis was on understanding the speaker's intent, tone, and the overall message. The late 20th and early 21st centuries, driven by the internet and digital technology, have ushered in an unprecedented era for listening practice. The proliferation of podcasts, YouTube channels, streaming services, and online language learning platforms has made authentic English audio accessible to anyone, anywhere, at any time. This includes ubiquitous access, meaning learners are no longer limited to classroom tapes or expensive textbooks. They can stream BBC News, listen to American sitcoms, or subscribe to podcasts tailored for English learners with a few clicks. Furthermore, personalization through AI-powered platforms and diverse content allows learners to choose materials that align with their interests, learning styles, and proficiency levels, making listening practice more engaging and sustainable. Crucially, repetition and control are now possible, as digital tools allow for easy pausing, replaying, and even slowing down audio, empowering learners to control the pace of their listening input. A vital feature for B1 learners struggling with speed. Finally, multimodal learning is enhanced with subtitles, transcripts, and integrated dictionaries, which improve comprehension and vocabulary acquisition. During listening activities, this historical journey highlights a critical evolution from an innate, natural process of acquisition, through periods of neglect and mechanistic drills, to our current understanding of listening as a complex, active, and meaning-focused skill, significantly aided by the vast resources of the digital age. The challenges for learners remain, but the tools to overcome them have never been more abundant. Key aspects and current state. Deconstructing English listening at B1 level. For B1 English learners, listening is a complex interplay of cognitive processes, linguistic knowledge, and strategic application. At this intermediate stage, the goal shifts from merely identifying words to comprehending the meaning and intent behind spoken language, even with some unfamiliar vocabulary or grammatical structures. Let's break down the key aspects, current challenges, and new trends relevant to B1 listening. According to the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, CEFR, a B1 intermediate listener can understand the main points of clear, standard speech on familiar matters, regularly encountered in work, school, leisure, etc. Understand the main point of many radio or TV programs on current affairs or topics of personal or professional interest when the delivery is relatively slow and clear. Understand the main points of short, clear, simple messages and announcements, and deal with most situations likely to arise whilst traveling in an area where the language is spoken. This means moving beyond word-by-word translation and developing the ability to process chunks of information, infer meaning, and follow the general flow of a conversation or presentation. Key aspects of effective listening involve bottom-up processing, which decodes individual sound units, phonemes, recognizes words, and understands grammatical structures. For B1 learners, This includes phonological awareness, distinguishing similar sounds like ship versus sheep, recognizing reduced forms like gonna, wanna, and understanding intonation patterns, lexical recognition, identifying individual words even in connected speech, where vocabulary size is crucial, and syntactic parsing, understanding grammatical relationships. Simultaneously, top-down processing uses background knowledge, context, and expectations to understand overall meaning. For B1 learners, this involves schema activation, using prior knowledge to anticipate speech, inferencing, guessing meaning of unknowns from context, predicting, anticipating what's next, and understanding discourse markers, words like however, therefore that signal connections. Finally, metacognitive strategies are conscious efforts to manage comprehension, such as monitoring comprehension, knowing when you've understood or lost the thread, self-correction, reinterpreting when comprehension breaks down, and setting a purpose, listening for specific information versus general understanding. Even with a solid B1 foundation, learners frequently encounter specific obstacles. Connected speech is perhaps the biggest barrier, where native speakers blend words together, e.g., what are you going to do? For what are you going to do? The pitfall here is trying to identify each individual word rather than recognizing reduced and linked forms. The pace of speech is another significant challenge, as native speakers' natural pace is often much faster than what learners are used to, leading to overwhelm and mental fatigue. Accent variation poses a pitfall, because limited exposure to specific accents can make even familiar words unrecognizable when spoken with an unfamiliar intonation or rhythm. Vocabulary gaps, even at B1, mean unfamiliar words, especially idioms and phrasal verbs, can derail understanding if a learner focuses too much on the unknown word and misses the rest of the message. The lack of visual cues in many listening practices, like podcasts, makes inferring meaning from body language impossible, forcing reliance solely on auditory input, which can be taxing. The common pitfall of translating in the head, trying to translate everything word for word into your native language, is slow, inefficient, and causes learners to fall behind. Lastly, anxiety and fear of missing out, FOMO, stemming from the pressure to understand every single word, create a mental block that prevents effective processing. Current trends in listening pedagogy are heavily influenced by the digital landscape and cognitive research. Modern approaches increasingly utilize authentic materials, moving away from artificial dialogues to real-world content, exposing learners to natural pace, accents, and vocabulary. There's an emphasis on differentiated instruction, recognizing individual learner needs by providing options for varying speeds, topics, and support tools like transcripts. A significant shift is the focus on strategies, not just content, meaning explicit teaching of how to listen, including top-down, predicting, inferring gist, and bottom-up, recognizing connected speech patterns strategies. Interactive listening engages learners with tasks that require them to react to or use the information they heard, rather than getting stuck on every word, which reduces anxiety and promotes natural comprehension. In essence, B1 listening is about building a robust bridge between recognition and interpretation, training the ear to process English as a fluid stream of meaningful sounds, and arming the mind with strategies to navigate the inevitable ambiguities and challenges of real-world communication. Impact and significance: how listening shapes your English journey and beyond. The impact of strong listening comprehension extends far beyond simply understanding spoken words. It fundamentally reshapes your entire English learning journey, influences your ability to communicate effectively, and even subtly affects your cultural integration. For a B1 learner, improving listening skills acts as a powerful catalyst, unlocking new levels of engagement and confidence. Listening is often called a receptive skill, alongside reading, but its impact on the productive skills of speaking and writing is profound and undeniable. When it comes to speaking fluency and accuracy, you cannot speak a language you don't hear. Good listeners naturally internalize the sounds, stress patterns, and intonation of native speakers, which vastly improves your own pronunciation, making your speech more comprehensible and natural. For example, consistently listening to how native speakers use connected speech helps you not only understand it, but also produce it yourself, moving away from robotic word-by-word articulation. Listening also supports vocabulary acquisition in context by providing rich environment for new words and phrases. When you hear a new term, like a phrasal verb or idiom used in a conversation, its meaning becomes clearer and more memorable than simply seeing it in a list. This allows for a more organic and efficient expansion of your active vocabulary. Moreover, while grammar rules can be studied, listening enables you to internalize grammar naturally. You hear correct sentence structures repeated, which helps you develop an intuitive feel for the language, making correct grammar come more naturally when you speak. Lastly, effective listening is crucial for mastering conversational flow and turn-taking, teaching you how to respond appropriately, when to interject, and how to manage dialogue, including the use of conversational fillers and back-channeling cues. While seemingly distinct, strong listening skills can indirectly aid reading comprehension by enhancing your phonological awareness. The ability to hear words in your mind as you read can improve comprehension, especially for new words or complex sentences. Additionally, exposure to the natural rhythm of spoken English can subtly improve your reading speed and comprehension as you unconsciously process the language in larger chunks. Though less direct, listening also contributes to writing proficiency by helping you internalize natural English sentence structures, making your written sentences sound more authentic and less translated. It also helps you understand different registers, formal, informal, casual, and tones, which can then be applied to your writing. For B1 learners, improving listening is the key to unlocking real-world interactions. Without solid listening skills, meaningful conversations are impossible. You can't ask relevant follow-up questions, express understanding, or contribute effectively if you're struggling to comprehend the speaker's core message. This directly impacts your ability to socialize, network, and build relationships in English. Strong listening skills also provide access to native speaker media movies, TV shows, podcasts, news, and documentaries. This isn't just entertainment, it's a constant, engaging source of natural language input that accelerates learning far beyond what textbooks alone can offer, allowing learners to engage with the language on a deeper, more enjoyable level. Finally, improved listening skills contribute significantly to reducing communication anxiety. The fear of not understanding is a major source of anxiety for many learners, and as listening skills improve, this anxiety decreases, leading to more confidence in initiating and participating in English interactions, creating a positive feedback loop that encourages more practice and further improvement. Language is inextricably linked to culture, and listening plays a vital role in understanding cultural nuances. It allows you to grasp the meaning and appropriate usage of idioms and slang, which are often heard before they are read, providing crucial insight into cultural references. Beyond literal words, listening allows you to perceive tone and emotion, grasping sarcasm, humor, and underlying intent, which is critical for navigating social situations and truly understanding the full message. For example, "Oh, great," can convey sincere approval or bitter sarcasm depending entirely on the speaker's intonation, a clear listening skill. Furthermore, exposure to various accents and dialects through listening broadens your understanding of the global nature of English, fostering an appreciation for linguistic diversity and reducing the shock of encountering unfamiliar speech patterns. In summary, Enhancing your English. Listening comprehension at the B1 level is not just about ticking a box on a language learning checklist. It's about empowering your entire learning journey. It directly improves your other skills, boosts your confidence, opens doors to authentic communication, and allows you to immerse yourself more deeply in English-speaking cultures. It is quite simply the engine of fluency. Comparisons and divergent perspectives. Beyond just hearing. Listening in language learning is far more complex than merely hearing. It involves intricate cognitive processes and often reveals areas where learning strategies diverge. Exploring these comparisons and perspectives helps us understand the nuances of effective listening practice. The most fundamental comparison is between hearing and listening. Hearing is a passive, physiological process, the reception of sound waves by the ear. You can hear a language without understanding it at all. Listening, conversely, is an active, cognitive process that involves paying attention, interpreting, and making sense of the sounds received, requiring conscious effort and engaging various mental faculties. A divergent perspective here is that some learners equate listening practice with simply having English audio playing in the background, while passive exposure can offer minimal benefits over long periods for overall language feel. It is not truly effective listening practice. Effective listening demands active engagement, focus, and strategic application. Without active listening, the brain tends to filter out foreign sounds as noise, failing to parse them into meaningful linguistic units. Another crucial comparison is between listening for gist versus listening for detail. Listening for gist, or global comprehension, focuses on the main idea and overall message, relying on context and prior knowledge, a top-down strategy. Listening for detail, or specific information, aims to extract precise facts like names, dates, or numbers, often requiring more bottom-up processing and higher accuracy. A common pitfall for many B1 learners, particularly those with an academic background, is instinctively trying to understand every single word from the outset. When they inevitably miss words due to speed or unfamiliarity, frustration often sets in. This perfectionist approach is largely ineffective. The more effective perspective for B1 learners is to prioritize listening for gist first. Train yourself to be comfortable with not understanding every word, focusing instead on the main idea. Once you can consistently grasp the gist, then gradually work on listening for more specific details. This approach reduces anxiety, builds confidence, and fosters more natural comprehension, much like seeing the forest before getting lost in the trees. We also need to consider intensive versus extensive listening. Two important pedagogical approaches. Intensive listening involves focusing on a short audio segment, e.g., 3 minutes, multiple times, dissecting it for every detail, looking up unknown words, analyzing grammar, and even transcribing. The goal is deep comprehension and language analysis. Extensive listening, on the other hand, means listening to longer audio materials, e.g., 15-60 minutes for general comprehension and enjoyment, often without pausing or replaying. Its goal is to build fluency, increase exposure, and improve overall comprehension without getting bogged down in details. A divergent perspective here is that some learners lean too heavily on one method. Those focused solely on intensive listening might spend hours on a short clip, becoming frustrated by minor errors, while those only doing extensive listening might listen passively without sufficient engagement to truly improve. The optimal approach for B1 learners is a balanced mix. Intensive listening helps you develop the micro skills of identifying sounds, connected speech, and specific vocabulary. Extensive listening helps you build stamina, improve processing speed, and gain confidence in understanding longer stretches of natural English. For example, use a short podcast segment for intensive study. Listen 3-4 times, check transcript, look up words, but then listen to a full 3-minute podcast episode for extensive practice, focusing only on the main ideas. Finally, the role of transcripts and subtitles in the digital age presents a unique dilemma. Some view them as an aid, invaluable tools for B1 learners. To cross-reference what they heard with the written word, identify unknown vocabulary, confirm understanding of connected speech, and verify details, thus bridging the gap when auditory comprehension alone is too challenging. Conversely, the crutch perspective argues that over-reliance on transcripts or subtitles can prevent true listening skill development, as constantly reading along means you're primarily practicing reading, not forcing your brain to actively process the sounds independently. The balanced perspective is crucial. Use them strategically. First, listen without subtitles, transcripts to challenge your auditory comprehension and try to get the gist. Then, listen with them to check understanding and learn. Finally, listen again without them to see if comprehension has improved. Gradually reduce your dependence, especially for extensive listening. These divergent perspectives highlight that listening is not a monolithic skill. It requires a strategic and flexible approach, recognizing that different goals and learning stages necessitate different tactics. For B1 learners, understanding these distinctions is key to maximizing listening practice. Future prospects and solutions. Your actionable roadmap to effortless listening. The future of English listening practice for B1 learners is bright, fueled by technological innovation and a deeper understanding of language acquisition. The goal isn't just to hear English, but to process it effortlessly and confidently. Here's your actionable roadmap, offering solutions and key takeaways to transform your listening skills. First, you must cultivate active listening habits. The biggest shift you can make is moving from passive reception to active engagement. Before you hit play, set a purpose for your listening. Are you listening for the main idea? Specific details? New vocabulary? A particular accent? This focused intent trains your brain to filter relevant information. As actionable advice, engage in pre-listening tasks. Before a podcast or video, look at the title, any images, or a short summary. Predict what the topic might be and what vocabulary you might hear to activate your top-down processing. Also, engage in post-listening reflection. After listening, take a moment to summarize what you understood, identify what you missed, and note any new words or phrases. Don't just move on to the next audio. For interactive listening, don't be afraid to pause and rewind, especially during intensive practice. Use this control to re-listen to challenging sections. Second, you need to deconstruct connected speech, which is the ultimate hurdle for B1 learners. It's where words merge, sounds disappear, and the rhythm of English truly comes alive. The solution is to dedicate specific practice to recognizing common phenomena like assimilation, e.g., don't you becoming don't-cha. Elision, e.g., cupboard losing the P sound. Linking, e.g., pick it up becomes pick it up. And reductions, e.g., because becoming cuz. For actionable advice, practice shadowing, listen to a short audio, segment a few sentences, and try to speak along with the native speaker at the same time and at the same speed. This forces you to mimic the rhythm, intonation, and connected speech patterns. Start with simple sentences and gradually increase complexity. Practice minimal pairs to distinguish between words that differ by a single sound, e.g., live versus leave, using online resources. Also, engage in selective dictation. Choose short, challenging sentences from your listening material. Listen and write down exactly what you hear, paying close attention to how words are connected. Then compare with the transcript. Third, you must embrace diverse accents to broaden your auditory horizon, as limiting your exposure to just one accent severely restricts your real-world comprehension. The solution is to actively seek out listening materials from a variety of English-speaking regions. As actionable advice, explore global content. Don't just listen to American or British English. Try podcasts from Australia, Ireland, Canada, South Africa, or even non-native speakers who speak English fluently, e.g., TED Talks from speakers worldwide. If you find a particular accent challenging, engage in accent-specific practice, dedicating a week or two to immersing yourself in content featuring that accent. The more you hear it, the more familiar it will become. You can also explore YouTube channels focused on accents, as many provide specific lessons on identifying and understanding different English accents. Fourth, make strategic use of technology, as these are your smart learning companions. The solution is to use apps and websites that offer features specifically designed for language learners. As actionable advice, utilize podcasts with transcripts, e.g., BBC Learning English, ESL Pod, Luke's English Podcast, using them strategically as discussed previously. Take advantage of adjustable playback. Speed on most podcast players and YouTube, e.g., 7.5x speed when starting with challenging audio, then gradually increase the speed. Explore interactive learning platforms like LingQ, Duolingo Stories, or certain Netflix or YouTube features that allow for dual subtitles or click-to-translate functionality, making listening less intimidating and more interactive. Fifth, prioritize comprehension over perfection. By following the 80-20 rule, trying to understand every word creates unnecessary stress and hinders fluent processing. The solution is to focus on the main message. If you understand 70-80% of what's being said, that's often enough for general comprehension. Don't let the 20% you don't understand stop you. As actionable advice for new audio, listen for gist first, just once or twice for the main idea, without worrying about details yet. When you encounter an unknown word, practice contextual guessing, its meaning from the surrounding words and overall context, which builds inferencing skills. Also, learn to embrace ambiguity, accepting that you won't always understand everything, as the brain is remarkably good at filling in gaps with enough practice. Finally, you need to build listening stamina, as effective listening requires mental endurance, much like physical exercise. The solution is to gradually increase the duration of your listening sessions. As actionable advice, aim for consistent daily practice of at least 15 to 30 minutes of dedicated listening every day, rather than one long session once a week, as consistency is far more effective than sporadic cramming. Vary your content by mixing short, intensive clips with longer extensive listening, materials to keep things engaging and build different skills. Most importantly, make it enjoyable by finding topics you genuinely enjoy. If you're interested, your brain will be more engaged and your stamina will naturally improve. Listen to music, watch TV shows you love, or follow podcasts about your hobbies. The future outlook for English listening promises even more sophisticated tools. Imagine OWL tutors that can generate custom listening content based on your exact interests, proficiency gaps, and preferred accents, complete with interactive exercises in real time, feedback on your comprehension strategies. Virtual reality environments could offer truly immersive listening experiences, simulating real-life conversations. The emphasis will increasingly be on hyper-personalized learning paths that leverage vast amounts of data to make listening acquisition even more efficient and tailored to individual needs. For you, the B1 English learner, this means the resources will only get better. But remember, technology is a tool. Your active engagement, consistent practice, and strategic approach will always be the driving force behind your progress. Conclusion: hear the world, understand your potential. We've embarked on an in-depth exploration of English listening, dissecting its historical journey from ancient oracy to the digital age, analyzing its complex cognitive processes, and confronting the common pitfalls that often hinder B1 learners. We've highlighted its unparalleled impact as the foundational skill that underpins all other aspects of English proficiency. speaking, reading, and writing, and unlocks authentic communication and cultural understanding. Crucially, we've armed you with a comprehensive suite of actionable strategies and solutions, from deconstructing connected speech and embracing diverse accents to leveraging technology and cultivating active listening habits. For too long, listening has been relegated to a passive exercise, a mere background activity. But as we've seen, true listening is an active, strategic, and profoundly rewarding endeavor. It's the skill that allows you to move beyond simply decoding words and truly grasp the meaning, the emotion, and the intent behind spoken English. Remember, the journey to mastering English listening is a testament to your dedication and resilience. It requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to step outside your comfort zone. You will encounter moments of frustration, where words blur and meaning eludes you. But these moments are not failures. They are opportunities for growth, pushing your auditory processing abilities to new heights. By applying the strategies we've discussed, by actively setting purposes, by dissecting the nuances of connected speech, by diversifying your exposure to accents, and by making technology your ally, you are not just improving a skill. You are building an intrinsic confidence. You are training your brain to navigate the beautiful, complex symphony of spoken English effortlessly. So go forth with newfound understanding and determination. Press play on that podcast, cue up that English video, and engage in that conversation. Every time you consciously listen, you are not just hearing English. You are understanding your potential. You are opening doors to new worlds of knowledge, connection, and communication. Keep listening, keep learning, and keep unlocking your English. The world is waiting to be heard, and you are ready to understand it.